So we're trying to have the simplest possible theory, and we've presented these three basic building blocks, but how do they relate to each other? It's possible to think of this in different ways, but we want to have a relation between them that gives us as few loose ends as possible, or as few unanswered questions as possible. And it's a quite difficult question because all of them seem to presuppose each other in order for them to exist at all. So it's difficult to understand how they can relate at all. And I discuss various options and advantages and disadvantages with each of them in the book, but here I'll just jump to the quick conclusion and say that the simplest way of understanding it is to say that the field consists of the possible values, which, among other things then, these values also constitute an actualizer. This actualizer has a structure which makes it actualize values in a certain way, which are then perceived as rules or laws of nature for us. So the actualizer has a structure making it into the actualizer that it is, and this actualizer is then this process of actualizing values in a certain way. But this again then creates conscious experiences and physical things, etc., that we can experience. But fundamentally, it's a field consisting of values which also constitute an actualizer, and its identity, its structure, is to actualize values in a certain way. There is some possible support for this view from physics. One thing is about all the symmetries that we can discover, which seem to point to some fundamental rules that everything follows. That there are these, there's so many particles which have a particle with corresponding opposite properties. You have particles and anti-particles. You have all sorts of patterns and relations that you find in very different kinds of equations and in different areas. For instance, you have different wave phenomena that we will find in very different places, sort of pointing to there seems to be some deeper rules being that manifest themselves in different ways at different places, but pointing to something deeper and underlying rules. And when it comes to this actualizer, physicist Lee Smolin has a theory about how black holes can generate different universes following different laws of nature. So it's sort of a kind of actualizer, actualizing different kinds of values according to different rules, sort of testing out various rules. But it's still, there must be something lying under what makes this the case. It does not explain consciousness, etc. So the theory I'm presenting is meant to be even deeper, but it's nice to see some data or theories in physics that seem to point in the same direction as the one I'm moving towards. I know it sounds wild, but I have argued or try to argue in these videos that it is the simplest explanation that we can imagine, and we should remember then that everything must have been possible already from the start, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So I think it's the simplest theory you can have that actually explains, instead of explaining away. Of course, it's easier to make a simpler theory just by saying that, well, laws of nature don't exist, consciousness doesn't exist, etc. You can deny this, but then you're explaining away something that I think we have very good reason to believe exists, and that should be explained instead of being explained away. So that was my point in this video.